To open up the 2024 playoffs, the Atlanta Motor Speedway is the venue of choice. Mini SuperSpeedway Racing meets Gen 4 stock cars for the first time in the Octane Series history. Welcome back to the Integrity OCTANE Series next level race for the championship. Tonight we head down to Hampton, but we've gone here before. This time around though, it's going to look a little bit different. It will race a little bit different. The Atlanta Motor Speedway's brand new SuperSpeedway configuration is on display for race 24 of the 2024 season. Welcome back live on FTN Broadcasting. I'll be your host for tonight's event, David Kreutz, commentating and producing. Currently 17 drivers have registered for this race and more are still due to come as qualifying has just opened up for the main feature. 167 laps or 250 miles are on the table for tonight's festivities, with Ethan Lane, the 11-time winner so far this season, sitting on the provisional pole after his opening lap, still with one more time to set, if of course he can get to the checkered flag without incidents. Lane now with 11 victories on the campaign, more than a 50% win rate in his start so far. This is our 24th race, and if Ethan were to win tonight, he would maintain a flat 50% win percentage on the season. A wonderful campaign it has been for him, and the story of the championship has been the big three all season long. Michael Araya has not yet gotten out on the track. However, Nick Tarbuck, the third of the big three members, he's on the circuit as we speak. That's the number 4 up to the top of the circuit. Right now he has 4 victories on his campaign and will be looking for a 5th tonight if he gets to the checkered flag as your race winner. Michael Araya additionally accounts for 7 wins. Laraya and Tarbuck combined have the same amount of wins as Ethan Lane, and across the entirety of the series so far, only one other driver has gotten one other victory. Speaking volumes about how continuously dominant these three have been, Nick Tarbuck, his opening lap puts him up into 11th here. Keep in mind, he still has one more time to set. Each driver given 2 laps in this qualifying session, and right now, Tarbuck out of that final of 2. As the number 4 gets on the way here out of turn 4, Tom Wetmore going to be on the outside pole position provisionally. The 51 going to be in second. Bobby Ross with another qualifying result that will be as strong as ever if he maintains his 3rd spot. Looks like Nick Tarbuck will not be coming to take it away. Nick getting up into 7th with a quick time of 31.233. Michael Araya now the final driver on the circuit, looking to take an extra time. He's going to be inside, of course, that number 44 we've seen all year long. But tonight, championship implications. Let's see what Laraya can do in the SimSpeed Shop Chevrolet as he looks for the first pole position of this playoff picture. We're now at our final 6 races of the year. After this week anyway, it's going to be a 7-race dash to the checkered flag, not only on the final race in Homestead, but in the season as a whole. Michael Araya's first lap puts him up in a 14th, so a lot of room to improve. As he goes on to this second lap, he looks like he's about a full second off the pole sitting time, but he's made up 0.8 of a second on his average pace through that opening sector, with room still to grow in through 3 and 4. Michael going to be looking for the pole position at a track where position is pivotal from the start. Most often we see drivers who start in the front row getting a chance to win in Atlanta above their competitors, but drivers recently have had success on FTN from the back of the grid. Michael's going to find himself in the middle. It's a 7th place run. That's where he will sit, 36 thousandths of a second off the pole position and 2 thousandths of a second off of Brian McFerrin, just ahead of him in the 6th spot. Every driver who took a time in this qualifying session is within a quarter of a second of your pole sitter Ethan Lane, and as such, Michael Araya going to find himself just a few thousandths off his desired position, of course, being that pole position itself. Araya comes down to pit road, and just like that, qualifying has concluded. Ethan Lane in the number 54 grabs the checkered flag, and of course, he comes away as your pole sitter to open up the next level race for the playoffs at the top of the board here in Atlanta. Now drivers are going to be making their way onto the circuit yet again, this time of course for 5 extra minutes of warm-up. Not expecting many changes to be made inside the cockpit. Oftentimes we say drivers get a chance to prepare perhaps a little longer for restarts, longer runs by going 5 minutes consecutively to try to burn tire, but strategy in that sense will not be too important unless you have the full field around you, so don't expect drivers to be going on for critical runs in this miniature session. It does give us time though to take a look at our starting grid from top to bottom, and a very familiar face at the front of the field again. The 11-time race winner is going to be able to grab the pole position. That's right, that's the number 54. It will be Ethan Lane inside of row 1, and he captures the pole with a 31.191 at the head of the field, 6 thousandths of a second ahead of the returning Tom Wetmore. Grabs the outside pole with a 31.197. Bobby Ross has been consistently strong in these final qualifying sessions of the regular season and looks to carry that over tonight. Bobby's going to be starting in third, with Ross Cato then just behind in the 4th position. Cato, runner-up in the championship last season after his one and only victory in Martinsville, propelled him into the final 4. It'll be Kyle Cooper in 5th and Brian McFerrin then position number 6. Michael Araya is going to be 7th, and Nick Tarbuck will be position number 8. Tonight, Brad Patton's going to have his first ever qualifying time of the season, and it's a 9th place effort for Brad, putting it in there with a 31.239. Then you have Cody Smith concluding the top 10 with a 31.279. You'll have 11th place then Don Stevenson, and 12th is going to be Nicholas Ward with Eli Cars in 13th. 14th place, and last of those who took a time, that will be Alan Rawell with a 31.484. Then you have 3 drivers who registered but did not set a time. Jacob Fife was not with us racing last night. However, the 36 has returned. He'll be starting 15th and inside of row number 8. Alongside him will be Sam Nieto, the number 2 machine. He's got 16th on the order, 17th and last on the grid, Randy Fiash in the number 55. He'll be lonely on row 9 as we put together our starting grid for the Un-DEBATE-able Octane 200. It is Randy Fiash. From the bottom of the board up, he'll see Ethan Lane as your pole sitter here from the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. Now just a few moments away from getting a starting grid, not only in our formation here by the numbers, but putting them back on the track for our pacing lap today. One pace lap, of course, to bring us to the green flag, and then from there, 167 laps await, a 250-mile race. You might remember that last season when we got our playoff swing going in the 2024 Octane Series, we went to Daytona for a 200-mile event. Now, looks like that's going to be axed from the schedule, and we've got ourselves now a first trip with this miniature super speedway in the Octane Series anyway. We've seen Atlanta before, but now we are seeing it again. Last time we saw Atlanta on the schedule, February 27th, it was a 134 lap race in which Michael Araya took the checkered flag. And now tonight, while it is the same venue, the same location anyway, it is certainly a different experience, and drivers are going to have to get used to that. Taking a look right now at a little bit of a group coming together with a minute and 16 left in this session. Brad Patton has the overall quickest time of all those in second practice, and so far, Sam Nieto finds himself 4th quickest on the timing sheets. All these drivers here getting themselves in the bundle, understanding maybe not the largest of fields here, but as we saw before in plate racing in the championship rounds, doesn't matter the quantity of the drivers, it matters the quality of the racing. And 167 laps on the table means pit strategy and fuel mileage will be essential to whether or not drivers find success or end up leaving with failure. 4 pit stops are not likely, 3 stops, if not a risky 2-stopper on the table tonight. 167 laps mean that you might see drivers come down to pit road as early as lap 45 if we do not have ourselves any yellow flags. However, that's very unlikely at a super speedway circuit as Tom Wetmore now makes the move by Sam Nieto. Wetmore, the 2nd quickest driver on the board. Now, many drivers who qualified into this Integrity Octane Series playoff bracket do not have victories to their name. Tom Wetmore is one of which, and as a matter of fact, there are a total now of 12 drivers who came in without a victory in the playoffs, which means parity, while maybe not expected, could result in some major upsets here in our playoff picture. Brad Patton saying the fastest time after his first ever qualifying lap this season. Let's see now what he can do alongside the field as we line up. Our starting grid is getting put together here from Atlanta. 167 laps on the table, and it's going to be number 54 of Ethan Lane bringing us back to action. Taking a look at Ethan Lane's number 54 from the back end of the starting grid, you can see here Bobby Ross once again starting strong inside of the top 5 positions. Ross has been having himself very strong starts ever since Watkins Glen. Now looking to capitalize on that momentum. SuperSpeedway Racing, in which just about every driver has a fair chance. Last time we had FTN visited the SuperSpeedway Atlanta configuration, we had 28 drivers register, and the driver who started the race in 26 was the man who won. Alexander Balderas only led 2 laps on the day. He led coming to the white flag and he led coming to the checkered, and spent the rest of the race mired in mid-pack trouble. He had a green-white checkered come his way at the very end of the event, and so the 95 team in the Iora Cup Series took the victory. Tonight we have 17 drivers, so there's really nowhere to run nor to hide. Well, there will be one driver deciding to start from pit road, much like Balderas did. That will be Alan Rawell in the 69. Interestingly enough, he will make the decision to go for perhaps the alternative start, the one and only driver attempting to do so here tonight. As now we take our one and only pace lab here. The Atlanta Motor Speedway for decades has been a home of intermediate racing in the Southeast, but it's looked pretty different for the past 2 or 3 years now. iRacing collaborating with NASCAR to bring this mile and a half to life. After its initial repavement in 1996, it was repaved yet again for the 2022 Cup Series season with high banking of 28 plus degrees across all 4 corners. And tonight, it's going to soak up the sun. While the sun is setting now, relative humidity of 56% will mean it's not going to be necessarily kind conditions to the tire. And with the next-gen stock cars we've got here, of course, Gen 4, shall we say, high horsepower, greater than that of last year's next-gens, which means power through the roof, warm conditions, and very humid. Slick tires are due to be expected as the race progresses, and tonight the number 54 of Ethan Lane, most familiar with Victory Lane, gets a chance to bring the field to green for our opening race of the next level, Race to the Cup. Lane and Wetmore going to start side by side as we grab our gears for the first time in the playoffs in 2024. Welcome back to the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Ethan Lane will bring us to green here from Georgia. As it stands, Ethan Lane going to find himself toe-to-toe with Tom Wetmore. Looks like the leaders not much different in these opening starts. It's going to be, of course, restarts where everything could be getting shuffled big time, but Bobby Ross decides to do the shuffling for himself. It's going to be now the number 45 machine taking the race lead, and just like that, Bobby Ross going to get some laps up ahead of the field to kick off the night here in Atlanta. Single file down to the bottom side. There's strength in numbers there. Ross Cato decided to take it up top, and with him, he's going to have the number 07 of Brian McFerrin. Heading forth side by side, it's going to be the number 12 machine of Ross Cato, now working up top. Middle group doesn't seem to be coming in right now. They will be 2 by 2 for the time being. Michael Arai going to be further back as well. It is the second group that looks to be a little bit further back, perhaps taking the most cautious round of all and hoping to remain in this draft. That's the end goal, all while not getting involved with what could be a major wreck up at the head of the field. 4 laps in, though, so far. The interest of the drivers don't seem to be all too too much about racing each other for position, but instead settling in and going at each other back and forth and figuring things out about the track together here. There's a lot of time on the table for these drivers, and we're giving them about as much time as they had for our season opener in Daytona. Meaning, of course, there's no reason to rush to try to take the race lead. At the front of the field, of course, number 45 of Bobby Ross decided to make those immediate moves, but the rest of the field, notably the top 10, have decided to stay almost entirely put. The only major change of which is the 54 of Ethan Lane. Lane decided to go all the way back to 12th position now, and while getting that pole position, it looks like he's not afraid to let other drivers lead laps. A lot of laps to lead, and I think he's going to agree as we already see smoke at the top of the circuit. Kyle Cooper going to be up high, and nobody else gets involved. Luckily, the field stays straight, but the 73 going to get banged up immediately. Let's take an instant replay here, figure out what caused what could have been our first wreck of the day. No yellow flag, luckily, and here we go again. Here's an instant replay. Kyle Cooper at the front of the field. From second, he goes sliding up the track and decides not to get up with everyone else, and so 73 saves the field. Unfortunately, that's going to be at the displeasure and the dismay of the 73 team. He hangs back and now finds himself 4 seconds off your leader and the only driver to start with the field that's no longer with the draft. Tom Wetmore, the number 51, leading the way now. It's going to be Bobby Ross who sits back in second. Let's see what happens next for Bobby Ross here as he finds himself now as the pushing driver rather than, of course, the driver in a full control. Leading the way now is going to be Tom Wetmore, and he's had experience getting it done before at these superspeedway circuits. We talked about where we went last in the Integrity OCTANE Series playoffs, and when, of course, we went to Daytona during the late summer into our championship races. Tom Wetmore was a podium sitter in that event. That's the race where Guillermo Alvarez got his one and only Octane Series victory in what was a photo finish where team magic came into play. All about teams when it comes to circuits that are drafting in nature, but not a lot of teammates are put together in this series, which means it's every driver for themselves, and that's when things really get tricky. Number 45 machine of Bobby Ross going to be alone. Tom Wetmore for Roadhouse Racing does have drivers with them most often, but tonight they're not only not at the front of the field, but instead they're not at all in this race. So Tom Wetmore also going to be lonely. Jacob Fife, no teammates with him tonight. Jim Fife not racing, so although Jim oftentimes finds himself in a different portion of the field, even there's no slight chance of those drivers getting together. Brad Patton, the one and only driver for Wanted Goons that has made a start this season, and it looks like it's more of the same tonight. Teams are going to be separate here. Whether or not, of course, that's to the benefit of drivers or if it's to, of course, negative sense. Right now, everyone is lonely, and Eli Cars might be benefiting the most of which. The 82 getting his time to shine up inside of the top 10 and doing a fantastic job at doing so. Double file for the top 5 drivers, then you move back in. Everyone else gets single file here, towing themselves around for these opening laps, and perhaps this is what it's all about here, because even Tom Wetmore decides to take it down low and almost opt out of the line, and instead he'll let Nick Tarbuck lead the way. Almost looks like a gentleman's agreement put together here. It's going to be number 4 of Nick Tarbuck up top and Jacob Fife down low. As it stands, rest of the field, though, they have definitely backed off and no signs of drivers going 3 wide or anything of the sort. Preparations are being made now to focus on the future of this event. And of course, the future comes down to how well these drivers will be able to perform for the next coming laps. 150 plus still on the table, and all about evaluating what the right decision is to make here and now. For most drivers, it seems like the right decision is as clear as day. Do not work yourself over so early. We've seen it many a time in superspeedway races. Getting involved in incidents in the first 20-25 laps can take out good drivers before we're even 10% of the way through. Well, now with the Integrity Racing League, of course, not having faster pairs, there's no incentive to decide to be that aggressive. So you'll see drivers right now being very careful. Kyle Cooper is actually getting caught up to now by Alan Rawell, which means we might see a little bit of a two-driver tandem. Whether or not it'll be successful, that remains to be seen. But the leaders, once again, they got themselves up and away, and Jacob Fife now with the first sign of life for the three-wide movement. He will give, and so will Nick Tarbuck, and so Brad Patton going to be lonely up and in front. Careening down the back straightaway at a speed of 180 miles an hour, the fastest mile and a half when it comes to those top speeds anyway in the country. Atlanta Motor Speedway surely in contention for such a statistic. Gen 4 stock cars taking well to the track so far, and with the exception of Kyle Cooper hitting what looked to be a bad bump, control issues have been minimal for the majority of the field. Ironic to say that given what we've seen in previous events, and the Gen 4 stock cars adapting to the circuit quite well. Looks like there's setup anyhow, fixed for every driver, is very stable, and there's no issue so far for the majority of the field, even at speed, controlling what they've got inside the cockpit. Drifting perhaps high and low, maybe half a groove at most to top the track, Jacob Fife now has the race lead. It's going to be Jacob Fife and Brad Patton first and second. Patton, regardless of qualifying position, was bound to find himself here, but you might see that brand new approach being taken by the driver of the number 7, rather than, of course, making his way into front of the field without a qualifying run, starting in 20th and then on back. Patton tonight has decided to do something a little bit different. He's taking qualifying laps, and it looks like that's the approach he will take not only for the rest of this season, but for the rest of the Ignite Series season, which means that he's not going to have that inherent disadvantage of having no track position and puts himself on that level playing field. Now tonight, he qualified in 9th. Maybe not the best of efforts, but it seems like for now, in the first 17 laps, it really hasn't mattered all too much where he started, because this is where he is. Contact, Eli Cars down to the bottom of the circuit. Rest of the field gets away. Bobby Ross Cars up the track. That'll collect Nicholas Ward. Yellow flag is out for a brutal hit. Randy Fiash gets tagged into the aftermath. Bobby Ross, Eli Cars. Caution is out. The first of the day, and multiple good drivers have been eviscerated. Front end hits brutal for many. Bobby Ross with notable suspension damage. And here you have it, cautions out. Just like that, the 45 among many involved, and you can see this is the initial incident, mind you. Take it a little bit further back to figure out what caused the start of the problems. Bobby Ross and Eli Cars, notable involved. Few others, including, looks like Kyle Cooper got away, but check this out from here. Randy Fiash definitely finding himself a little bit of trouble as well, but the first hit here and now. Eli Cars in the wall, comes down to the Bobby Ross. Contact. Ross ends up sliding down to the bottom of the circuit, tries to straighten himself out to no avail. He continues to slide, and it looks like it's fine from here. Ethan Lane going to be able to get away, but at the expense Nicholas Ward. Ward going to get collected big time. Front end damage is brutal to Bobby Ross, and Ward comes up the track further. Michael Araya by a sliver avoids it. Sam Nieto catches a piece, and as does Randy Fiash on the way out, although Fiash's damage looks to be minimal if any, and it looks like he'll be able to continue from here on out as well. Michael Araya, how about the avoidance of the day so far? And I'm sure he wouldn't like to top that, but he might have the award locked up for tonight. Take a look on board with the 44 of Michael Araya. Down low, minor front end damage, if anything, and Michael Araya might have just gotten away scot-free regardless. Through the smoke, 44 will keep on running, and 19 laps in out of 167, majority of the field save for Randy Fiash. When in that time by, everyone's going to be level on strategy so far tonight. Jacob Fife is going to find himself the winner off pit road. Randy Fiash in 55. He's got himself overall as the race leader. One lap to green this time by. Randy Fiash, despite getting involved in that most recent incident, deciding to stay out and retain the race lead. 55 machine of Fiash got himself on the inside and from 17th up to first, last to first challenge. And as such, looks like he's got himself advantageous over Jacob Fife. Fife able to get the race lead off a pit road with a pit road time 14.8 seconds in the box, 39 seconds flat on the road overall. Notable entries and exits. Let's talk about Ethan Lane, 39 seconds, 14.9 in the box, very similar. He ends up in 7th as a result. Nick Tarbuck now going to be in 4th after 39.7 seconds, so a little bit slower. Nevertheless, still a good result to get him back up inside the top 5 after this first cycle just kicked off. Then, of course, you got Ross Cato in the number 12. He's got himself up into 3rd, and he's right behind your race leader and control car Randy Fiash. We'll see whether or not he has to swerve out of the way, or, of course, if he's going to work well with the 55. We'll go back racing, lap 21 out of 167. Here we go again. Randy Fiash on older rubber decided to take the lead of the field, and he's going to do something a little bit risky here, try to check, of course, whether or not he's got the pace. Through the restart, side by side, and no major trouble for the 55 team. Fiash, though, already seeing that pressure from Ross Cato, but it'll be Randy leading the field through turns 1 and 2. Looks like now Jacob Fife up to the top side. He's got himself leading over Randy Fiash. Randy's still going to be holding his own well on older rubber, deciding to go for this alternative strategy. He's going to now find himself behind Jacob Fife as Jacob takes it to the bottom, and multi-groove blocking going to lead Nick Tarbuck all the way up top. The first of our championship races. The playoffs begins here and now tonight, and now we find ourselves in a position where, of course, every race matters that much more for our playoff drivers. Nicholas Ward going to find himself with what could be a very early exit as he was on pit road for 4 minutes to this point and still finds himself down there. It looks like his chances of getting up for a top 15 or even a top 10, well, it's going to be slim to none, and especially marginal now as we get ourselves back in a groove and a rhythm as we go racing again, 23 laps in out of 167. Jacob Fife going to be leading. Then from there, you got the number 4 of Nick Tarbuck. 3rd place going to be Brian McFerrin. 4th is Ross Cato. Side by side now, Tom Wetmore going to be with Cody Smith, and maybe a little bit more 2x2 in the back half of the top 10. However, we've already seen some incidents from this back half of the top 10 previously. Eli Carr's, of course, getting himself involved there with 97, Nicholas Ward, Bobby Ross as well. Ross getting the worst of it, of course, catching that hit from the 97, and he's on pit road as we speak with that substantial suspension damage. That's something that's going to take more than 10 minutes to repair, even to get back out on the track in a serviceable condition, let alone race competitive. The speeds are not going to be hit all night long for the 45, and the majority of the race, unfortunately, down the drain for him. As you can see here, there's to the top side, Ross Cato, down low, Brian McFerrin, 24 laps in out of 167 here. Brian McFerrin gets up to the podium, 6th to 3rd so far. Jacob Fife can have himself race lead, Nick Tarbuck P2, Brian McFerrin then occupying the 3rd position. Let's talk now about what strategy could become for the rest of this race, and most importantly for the driver of the number 12, Ross Cato here. He's looking for that first breakout win, as would be the same for Brian McFerrin, as would be the same for Cody Smith, or Tom Wetmore, or Kyle Cooper, or Don Stevenson, or Brad Patton. Everyone here looking for race victory, and to get to that point, they're going to have to follow the strategies perhaps of the big 3, who right now are not setting the tone in this race, but are certainly finding themselves in the lead pack as they've been all season long. I don't think it's going to be about the big 3 tonight when it comes to being the most noticeable or perhaps the most aggressive drivers. They definitely will not be up in everyone's faces throughout the entirety of this event. However, they're definitely going to be looking around. That's a certainty as to whether the drivers will be doing. The best drivers in strategy this season have been consistent for 20 plus events. That does not just go away depending on where we go racing. And tonight, of course, we have ourselves a track that we've been to, only in a different form. Miniature Superspeedway Racing, it is its own niche. There's very few circuits that can compare to Atlanta in any sense. As such, being very basic with respect to tire and fuel will be critical. So expect multiple times over, we're going to see drivers like Nick Tarbuck and Jacob Fife and company go down to pit road. However, how long will it be until they go down for the first time under green still remains the biggest question mark, because even if we have ourselves a good green flag run, it could be interrupted by something such as, of course, another caution. Maybe some drivers have to come in early for some unexpected failures, perhaps mechanically or otherwise, but it is very likely that Nick Tarbuck, Jacob Fife, Ross Cato here, Brian McFerrin, all of which, well, they've got themselves locked in for a long-term plan. And there's Eli Cars. He's a lapper, one down as we speak, and he's looking to get himself back up on the lead lap, and he's going to battle for it instead of finding himself outside for long. Looks like Eli Cars already looking to make himself back up, and he's hoping to get the lucky dog position regardless of all other drivers. Meanwhile, of course, we've seen Bobby Ross, Nicholas Ward sitting on pit road. The 82 getting away, just lucky enough to return to the field, and looks like he could have himself a race still successful if one more caution were to fly on the field tonight. Nevertheless, that is still a major if, and that's why we talk about strategy not being a certainty. You cannot rely on a yellow flag. It's more likely, more predictable anyway, with the field size we have now of 14 on the lead lap, that we will go most of the way green. Maybe we won't go all the way green, however, we are due to see many a lap run consistently under green flag conditions. Jacob Fife to the bottom and Ross Cato up top, still going to be toe-to-toe with Nick Tarbuck down on the bottom side here. And looks like he's hanging tough alongside Eli Cars. Rest of the field, you can see him here, single file, and already going to be in a little bit of that fuel saver mode, deciding not to burn up their stuff anytime soon, and instead getting set up for what is next. Of course, that's going to be strategy cycles. If you're not up there inside the top 5 right now, it would be burning through with respect to fuel and tire alike to get up there, unless mistakes and misfortune get you right there by yourself. 73 of Kyle Cooper going to be in 8th, Ethan Lane is in 9th, and Don Stevenson is in 10th. A little bit of an outlying race so far for Ethan Lane, not trying to up and lead every lap of the day, but instead actually finding himself comfortable in the bottom half of the top 10, and it looks like that's where he's due to reside for the entirety of this race. You can see here Ethan Lane in particular, of course, finding himself right between two drivers who are running single file, not even up in the main pack so far. It looks like it's going to be all about whether or not the 54 machine can just hang on to the draft tonight. Maybe not focusing on immediately showing up. Michael Araya taking that to extremes, while Nick Tarbuck is in the lead pack and Ethan Lane is in the top 10. Right now, Michael Araya runs 12 of 14 lead lap drivers, only ahead right now of Sam Nieto and Randy Fiash alike, both of which have decided to stay on the circuit, of course, and only one of which went down to pit road for an alternate strategy, but those two decided to drop back even further. For Michael Araya, it looks like he's relatively comfortable where he's sitting. That's going to be inside the 12th position now, just outside the top 10. He's going to let Don Stevenson and company continue to battle in the upper positions. Now, Alan Rawell went down a pit lane. However, interestingly enough, he did not go into his officially reported anyhow pit stall. It looks like he went through pit lane, was not able to find his stall, and ran right back out. So similar enough to Randy Fiash's strategy, albeit accidental. You're going to see now the 69 of Rawell running on that older Goodyear rubber, and he's not going to have himself a, of course, fully loaded tank of fuel. So Allen's in a different position from everyone else here because he went down a pit road, but yet was not able to find his pit stall with a proper amount of time. It looks like he didn't decide to go down for a second time either, and so Allen actually has that track position and has moved him up into 6th, and it looks like he got it through that cycle. 14th up to 6th. It's going to be the 69 of Alan Rawell here. Well, he's running just outside the top 5 and looking for what could be his first career Octane Series win. He's gotten many a time top 5 pace in early runs, but has never been able to sustain it beyond the first 50% of an event. A little bit of sparking up at the top side of the circuit. That's Eli Cars in the 82 once more. Eli luckily not getting anyone else involved, and so he will once again back down, and he's going to tie the bridge together between the 18 of Cody Smith and the 69 of Alan Rawell. Now closer than they were previously. Looks like Alan Rawell going to benefit from this more than anyone else, and there's not much more else than Eli Cars can do, sort of waiting for his next opportunity. Tom Wetmore now going to be passed by Ethan Lane. That's the battle for 7th. It looks like Lane now starting to slowly but surely climb his way up the ladder of position. Very first time we've seen him make that move, or Wetmore anyway. It looks like now he's going to bring multiple drivers trying to go for a quick double file pass. 47 of Don Stevenson, going to bring the 7 of Brad Patton, and as such, Kyle Cooper drops back into the 11th position. Back and forth across multiple drivers, of course, across multiple lanes. You'll begin to see that passing action later half of the race most prominently, but right now maybe drivers getting themselves ready again for the best position, of course, for their last lap passes. Now, 2x2 racing, we do not expect it to be the priority for most drivers, especially when things get risky, but right now, as we see Alan Rawell get shuffled up to the top of the track, it looks like he's going to get past rather quickly. Now you're beginning to see drivers experiment once again with a versatile set of grooves. From the ceiling all the way down to the bottom of the track where that apron is and the paint groove is, that's what these drivers can use, and they can even use a little bit of the apron here in Atlanta. However, it has gotten substantially narrower over the years. Not much else that can be done on the apron, and it's really not incentivized for drivers to go down there. Instead, the banking and, of course, the main racing circuit looks to be priority and preference for the entirety of the pack. One to the wall, that's going to be Cody Smith. Everyone cycles around, and a quick shuffle brings the 18 back to 9th. And not good news there for Smith. He's definitely got himself that right side damage. And here comes the number 44 of Michael Araya making it around. That's going to move Smith outside of the top 10. Just like that, 69 machine of Alan Rawell coming 4th on the bottom side. There goes Allen getting back up to 12th. Cody Smith now 13th, and only Randy Fiash going to be behind him here on the lead lap. Looking back up ahead, Brian McFerrin going to be 4th, Ethan Lane 5th, and Brad Patton is in position number 6. There's Don Stevenson once again trying to make a move on Brad. Looks like to no avail so far. Not a lot of assistance, and instead, Tom Wetmore goes down to the bottom. Strength in numbers on the inside line. That looks like where it's been all day long. Not many opportunities for drivers to really make much of the middle or even the top side, and admittedly, that's been the biggest problem. Whether or not, of course, drivers can make something work outside of the preferable groove for passing, that has dissuaded many a driver from going for a move. Here comes the 54 of Ethan Lane now trying to make the move up for 2nd, and we talked about Lane slowly but surely moving up the ladder, where it looks like now he's going from 5th up to 2nd in a single lap. Now he's going to be toe-to-toe there with the number 4, 2 of the big 3 going right at each other yet again. 36 of Jacob Fife going to have to watch right behind. Here's the number 36 machine's back end view, and taking a look from the rear end, you can see on the bottom he's got to manage Nick Tarbuck. On the top side, he's got to manage Ethan Lane. This, of course, is where things get dicey, and this number 36 machine tries to block Lane, gets a little bit squirrely, and Lane has no choice now but to stick to what he's got on the top side. Gonna give Ethan Lane that run all the way up to the high side of the circuit, going almost up to the wall. Ross Cato may be looking high as well, but not close enough, nowhere near enough anyway, to make something happen there with Fife or Lane alike. Nick Tarbuck's going to stay right behind the 36 here. Jacob Fife now going to get pushed right through. A car length advantage over the 54 and then on back. So Fife now going to be leading again. It'll be Nick Tarbuck P2, Ethan Lane in third, and Brad Patton then and there in fourth. You got Ross Cato going up at the top side of the track as he has for the past 2 laps and can't quite find any assistance, so he'll simmer down once more. Double file starting to show up in the top 3 and nowhere else. Right now, everyone just racing to get to pit road. Green flag pit stops are going to be paramount tonight. Everything comes down to when we go down to pit road. And with most drivers still running at a competitive pace here, only give or take 2 drivers on the lead lap falling out of race pace speed. It means there's very little to worry about for those who are still up in front, short of getting down a pit road and having a successful pit stop to keep this pack alive and together. Nearly 50 laps in this time by, it's going to be Jacob Fife still leading by about a car length and a half in the battle for second. The tide is turning. It's going to be Nick Tarbuck now with the advantage down low, and Ethan Lane, who was coming in with a lot of momentum. Well, it looks like now things are going a little bit backwards for 54. He's falling down a third, and maybe Brad Patton now trying to take up that podium position. Single file all the way down. Michael Araya, you see him there. He is in 9th right now, but the distance between him and the lead, well, it has slowly but surely grown. Not a major growth. It's now going to be 1.7 seconds back from Jacob Fife, your race leader, but about a half second further back than where he was 15 laps ago. So Michael Araya right now putting himself in a good position to keep this second pack together, but at the same time, the most worrying picture for the number 44 would be if, of course, Don Stevenson and company tighten up. Right now, Michael Araya continuing to lie back and maybe going to leave Eli Cars just enough room to even go around him here. We'll see whether or not this strategy is successful because other drivers detach themselves from the lead pack and it hasn't quite gone as well for Kyle Cooper, who's now nearly 2 seconds out. Randy Fish is going to be 3 seconds back from Kyle Cooper, and then you've got Alan Rawell right there with them. Admittedly, the 2 drivers working together, and they've all left Cody Smith in the dust here. Cody, he's been falling back further and further, and that right side damage, it is critical, and it looks like there's not much else he can do short of riding it out for the time being. Nicholas Ward is back on track, and he's got himself a practically clean car. There's the number 97, and with them going to be Bobby Ross also on track. So both drivers coming in, although they are going to be more than a dozen laps down apiece, they're back on track, and they're going to come in here trying to look for a few extra points. Even though the night for now has not gone well, it does not mean they have to give up so quickly. 50 laps in out of 167. Tom Wetmore getting back up into the 4th spot. Let's take a lap on board now with Wetmore as we go inside the cockpit of the TubeTech Chevrolet. Across the line, Tom Wetmore still going to find himself just behind your podium sitters, doing a real good job so far, although he qualified in second and is down 2 positions. Many a time that doesn't mean all too much early on. Wetmore right now going to have a little bit of pressure again from Brad Patton, and consistency is going to be key here, lap after lap. It's not about getting up to the lead immediately, but perhaps more so about how close can you run to the race leaders and find that comfort zone. Ethan Lane once again going to shuffle himself right up to the top. It looks like right now it's been a little bit trickier for drivers to stay on the higher side, but Tom Wetmore, he's going to do it once again. Let's see now what's going to happen for the number 51 machine. He's got himself neck and neck with Nick Tarbuck yet again, and it looks like now the high side might get a little bit of momentum. Jacob Fife decides to go up top, bring some speed down the back straightaway, and the only saving grace for these drivers, whether they're on the bottom side or on the top, the biggest thing is whether or not Jacob Fife, the race leader, is on their respective line. The high side and low are both controlled for the time being by that race leader. It looks like Jacob Fife doing a very good job so far at not only managing the bottom where he most often has been, but also using that secondary line. An impressive job to this point. Jacob Fife going to be leading, Nick Tarbuck in second, Tom Wetmore is in third. Now you'll see Ross Cato even getting up in the mix, which will leave 6 drivers within about a tenth and a half apart. The distance is less clear and less clear. You could wrap these drivers under a blanket at this point, and I think most of them would fit. Fife is going to go down low, and a quick block with just enough room will put him down to the bottom side yet again. Doing a fantastic job managing both groups here, and all the drivers in both lines giving an awful lot of respect to allow it to happen. Nick Tarbuck going to go down to the bottom once more, of course getting a lunge through 3 and 4, but with a surge of momentum, Jacob Fife once again pulls out and ahead, and it looks like for Fife it's as simple as that. He goes down to the bottom side when necessary and then runs up top when it's needed. At the same time, it looks like he's been able to manage them consistently lap in, lap out, which is no small feat, and now the outside line as a whole has come undone. And there you have it. It's going to be now Jacob Fife leading the way fully, and then Nick Tarbuck going down to the inside. There's the number 4 machine, and Jacob Fife is going to be leading all alone. Tom Wetmore going to be shuffled back big. Can't quite find himself in the mix here with a 12 of Ross Cato, and they will not let him in immediately into, of course, the inner groove. There's Nicholas Ward, also a lapper here, but nevertheless, the 97 not going to make it very easy. There you have it, 51 machine of Tom Wetmore making his way through, and it's going to be Tom Wetmore in 6th now after being as high as 2nd. It's going to be 97 now, letting him in, and as such, the inside groove now going to see the 51 at long last. Cody Smith is a lapper right now, but yes, he's back with the leaders of the field. Not much else he can do now as he's going to continue to fall back, even with the draft around him, and there's nothing more that can come from it. And as you can see, Cody Smith still going to be going back and forth, trying to put things together, and as much speed as he can get out of it, he's only getting up to a speed of give or take 160 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour slower than everyone else through the corners, and up to 20 slower all throughout straightaways. So it's clear now Cody Smith cannot keep up. Bobby Ross might be the next lapper they catch up to. Ross right now 24 laps down, and as you can see, Jacob Fife coming down the straightaway at the same time as Ross. In due time, they're going to get up to that number 45, and it looks like it's going to be a relatively simple pass if, of course, those drivers can get right back up to them. Jacob Fife, Nick Tarbuck, Ethan Lane, Brad Patton. That's your front 4 right now with Ross Cato running in 5th. Let's talk a little bit more about that championship picture while we have the time. 60 laps in out of 167. 15 drivers enter this opening round with a chance for the championship here in the Integrity OCTANE Series. And as you can see, only 3 of which have been able to collect the checkered flag so far this season in championship contention. Once again, yes, Bobby Ross does not have a victory. Yes, Nick Tarbuck has only 4. Jacob Fife, none. Cody Smith, none. Ross Cato, none. So on and so forth. Some of the biggest names have only had a few opportunities at victory, and even for Nick Tarbuck, who has the 3rd most victories on the campaign, he has 4, which is an impressive amount by its own standard, but when you look at the 2 drivers ahead of him, Michael Araya with 7, Ethan Lane with 11, well, that's when it becomes immediately clear. It has become a all-out dogfight between a select few drivers, and the rest of the field has not been able to get it done to the same extent. Matter of fact, Blake Cannon, the only driver to interject and get that one and only win for his campaign, and it's been a 95% plus win percentage for the Big 3 throughout the entire season. Unbelievable. Of 23 races that we've run so far, 22 of which were won by either Laraya, Lane, or Tarbuck. But let's talk about the drivers who are on the bottom end. Bobby Ross comes in as the final seed. We got major contact. It's going to be big trouble. Jacob Fife is going to go around spinning. Nick Tarbuck is still going to be sliding. The yellow flag is out. 62 laps in. We've got trouble. The number 36 and the number 4 alike. They're going to get into each other, and to open up the playoffs for Atlanta, 2 championship contenders with major implications. The yellow flag is out for the 2nd time today. Here's an instant replay. Let's check out just what caused it here. And of course, these are 2 drivers who are in the upper half of the seed. It looks like contact for Jacob Fife got him into Nick Tarbuck. Tarbuck comes right back up the track and a hit by Brian McFerrin and almost a T-bone. Let's take a look additionally at the initial cause. It looked like Jacob Fife and company were battling, and that's what led to it. Take a look one more time here, side by side. Jacob Fife, he was with the lapper of Bobby Ross, and as the two drivers went out of turns 1 and 2, Lane tries to go 3, then hooks into Bobby Ross, then that gets Jacob Fife, then Nick Tarbuck. He's almost got away. Perhaps he thought he did. And yet at the very end of it all, he gets tagged and goes around violently. Now, taking a look most importantly at the drivers that did avoid it, I think now Ethan Lane with the best avoidance of that incident. Here's an instant replay from the number 54 of Lane, and, well, admittedly he gets away, yes, and then take a look at this. Lane gets through, best for him because he got away completely clean. Take a look further back and you're also going to see drivers like Ross Cato who got away, Brian McFerrin, huge hit with the number 4. Sam Nieto has to back off big time, and as such, yellow flag out for the second time, 64 laps in out of 167. Unfortunate news for some of the race-leading drivers, of course. Those were contenders up at the front of the field. Nick Tarbuck, one of those guys in the big 3, and to get that front-end damage, it is critical, and not in a good sense, as here, Ross Cato finds himself the race leader. Then you got Tom Wetmore, P2. Third place, it's going to be Don Stevenson and Michael Araya will be in fourth. 64 laps in out of 167. Coming up to what will be 100 laps to go in due time. We'll go back green at lap number 66. Bobby Ross, despite getting involved in that one, does still look to be out on the track. 24 laps down, and it looks like, unfortunately, wrong place, wrong time for Bobby Ross. And these lappers, they are allowed to stay with the pack, of course, without causing any trouble. And we'll see whether or not that's going to be ruled as an incident where Ross would be at fault. But it looks like multiple drivers trying to go for the same placement, and that leads to the second caution of the day. Ross will be led around the pace car here, and Ross Cato will be your race leader. We're set to go at it again at lap number 66. Here we go again. Cato up in front, Tom Wetmore second, Michael Araya position number 3. The opening laps of this race, we've had a few incidents spread out over the first 60 plus, and once again strategy going to be cut off. We will not see a green flag pit stop, at least to this point. Big question though. 100 laps still left on the table. We could see a 50-50 split. A green flag pit stop would still be necessary for this race. Now, whether or not we get there still remains up in the air, but we have ourselves 13 drivers, now 12 of which on the lead lap. It's a small group still looking for the big prize, an opening victory in the playoffs. Ross Cato, he's got himself leading for the first time tonight. Tom Wetmore going to be back in his qualifying position. Going to be Cato, Wetmore, Don Stevenson, Michael Araya. 1, 2, 3, 4. This time around, number 12's got full control for our second restart. Second restart of the day, inside groove, it's Ross Cato. Up top, going to be Tom Wetmore. Green flags out again at lap number 66, and clearly now, Ross Cato's got himself up and in front. Nighttime setting going to be coming into play for the next few laps, so check it out as the sky continues to descend into full darkness and the stadium lights come bright. Now, Ross Cato, he's got himself the race lead. Number 12 machine up and ahead. Now it's going to be Cato, Wetmore, Stevenson, and Michael Araya, the front runners at the head of the pack. Very similar grouping, and it looks like, again, it's gotten a little bit smaller up in front. You do have Eli Cars, who's still one lap down, and regardless of circumstance, it looks like he's still going to be one down. That yellow flag not really going to help him out all too much, and so he remains waiting for another caution to perhaps save his race. Nick Tarbuck going to be on the circuit, albeit 4 laps down. Brian McFerrin retires 5 down. Nicholas Ward might be able to gain a position within 10 or so laps as a result. Bobby Ross more the same within 20 laps. So they will not finish dead last, neither Ward or Ross, but instead Brian McFerrin appears to be your first official retiree, and as such he will finish in 17th and last. Going to be a little bit of weaving and bobbing there. Alan Rawell going to drop down low on Ethan Lane. It looks like he's got the position on Lane for the time being. That's going to move Alan up into 6th, just ahead of Don Stevenson. Then you have Sam Nieto, Michael Araya, and there's that front 4. Don Stevenson going to be all the way outside of which, and all the way up top, it's going to be Cato and Michael Araya. They'll have to work with each other here up on the higher side of the circuit, which hasn't been the most fruitful, shall we say, in bringing drivers up to the head of the pack. Ethan Lane might have gotten the closest to it, and we thought he might have been able to make a little bit of a change, but he was not able to officially lock down 2nd position and immediately got pulled all the way back. Tom Wetmore's number 51 leading, Sam Nieto in 2nd, and it's going to be Michael Araya there in 3rd. That's the ranking on the inside groove anyway. Then you have, of course, the 51 machine, of course, had to evaluate what's up top for Ross Cato. Cato right now going to find himself overall scored in 3rd, but when they come down the back straight, Cato's got enough speed and enough headway to even get up and go side by side with Wetmore and maybe be scored as the official race leader, but there's really minimal opportunity for Ross Cato to clear the inside groove. It's more so that he gets side by side and it gets close, but it really doesn't get anywhere near getting that race lead for good. Getting it for good is a completely different story than having it for a brief moment, and that's the thing drivers are going to have to juggle all throughout their race. Whether or not they want to go aggressive and make those big moves, they might be able to, but is it worth it right now to risk what you have or risk your current position to try to find something a little bit more fruitful in the coming laps? 97 laps to go this time by. Tom Wetmore going to find himself 51 machine running there inside even still. Sam Nieto's been quiet today from 16th up to 4th. He was, of course, one of the very few drivers who decided not to take a qualifying time. One of only 2, as a matter of fact, and found himself 16th and the penultimate driver on the field. So, for Tom Wetmore, he's now with a driver who's not had many a chance at the top of the leaderboard. Now Wetmore, of course, is going to have himself many laps leading and many laps led, but for Sam Nieto it's a little bit different. He's been all over the circuit, and for the most part he's found himself on the bottom half. Maybe not enough time, not enough experience to be necessarily trusted, but pushing and shoving, not recommended with a Gen 4 stock car, as Jacob Fife has to end up down low, and they'll let that lapper go right by on the inside. It's a quick move there from Jacob Fife to get out and away from the rest of the pack, and unfortunately for Fife, that's going to bring him 3 laps down now, and he's going to continue to lose time and lose laps at this rate. Nick Tarbuck also just got out on the track. There's the number 4. Nick is getting on his way and coming through turns 1 and 2. Might get caught up to by the lead pack though, and as Tarbuck comes, here comes the leaders, and so Nick is going to have a chance to get right up into the lead pack, and swooping in, he's going to be just behind Jacob Fife when everyone gets back up to speed with the number 4, and they're all the same pace. Tarbuck and Fife alike will now have a chance to run in line, get in that train, and not have to worry all too much about losing any further laps, which could jeopardize them if more drivers are to retire late in the event. And that's what we mean by every lap mattering here. Say you are 3 laps down, and with only 3 laps to go, a multitude of drivers wreck. It could be a circumstance where you have a green-white checkered, yes, but what if it is your penultimate green-white checkered, in which pit road time might dictate whether or not a driver has a chance to get back out there again. If they're on the lead lap and you're 3 laps down and you have yourself that final caution, you'll be able to get back up to their level. They'll come down to you rather, and as a result, Fife might be able to make up a few positions just by hanging out on the track. You never know when these laps become crucial. You never know when they become the most important thing you've got, because losing 1 or 2 more laps could change a race for the better for others, but not for your liking. Could be much for the worse if you even let up 1 more lap. Being on the lead lap, of course, is desirable, preferable. It's what everyone would like to have, but even if you're 1 or 2 or 3 laps down, you're not really in full-on jeopardy until those final laps. And with super speedway style racing that we have here, there's really no safety. Whether or not these drivers have done a real good job, of course, of keeping it clean, which they have for the most part, only 2 yellow flags so far, it never means that everything is going to be simple. As a matter of fact, quite the opposite, because drivers right now have to compensate for the style of racing they're working with. It is never an easy task when we go to a track like Atlanta or Daytona or Talladega. Even if these drivers are very well experienced, and at the same time they know what it takes to win or do well at Atlanta, every race brings its own challenges with it. The inside, once again, you're going to see Tom Wetmore take it low on Brad Patton. Ross Cato maybe looking for a move to make it 3 wide, but blocked all the way up the track by Brad. It looks like Patton going to be content with sitting up there on the high side and not letting another driver even have a chance. Good move there by the number 51 machine to Tom Wetmore to just let it all slide rather than reacting to what's going on up at the front of the field. Looks like Tom Wetmore so far has decided, of course, to just play the role of staying on the inside and protecting what's down there. Brad Patton much more interested right now in hanging up there with Ross Cato. Looks like the top groove now has just enough when it comes to its numbers to be strong compared to the inside. And strength in numbers applies most of that inside groove most often, and it's in a sort of twist where not only the inside line prefers and benefits from having more drivers, but the outside groove, even if it doesn't have as many drivers, it all comes down to Brad Patton, the few he's got, using that momentum off of the banked, curved portions of the circuit, turns, and even the front straight to get enough speed to get by on the back straightaway, which, if Brad Patton desires, he's got a chance to get by on the back straight, which of course he has decided not yet to use. Check it out as we take a look with our eye in the sky here on FTN, and you'll see a little bit more as we take it above the circuit. And here is the number 7 of Brad Patton. He is a car length ahead of Tom Wetmore, and only just. Now, you can see this time around, Ross Cato going to get up to him, and Brad Patton instead is going to come right back. It's this back and forth procedure the drivers have to deal with. Patton is getting a very good run out of turn 3 and 4, as he did in 1 and 2, and doesn't have anything to really worry about with respect to as we come across the start-finish line, losing his spot. It's more so now about whether or not he and Ross Cato have the proper chemistry as drafting partners. It's going to be the 51 machine of Tom Wetmore and the number 7 of Brad Patton, toe-to-toe, going at each other here and now with 86 laps remaining. Michael Araya is going to be up into the 6th spot here, and while Nick Tarbuck and one of the members of the Big 3 has fallen out of favor, Michael Araya remains as the leading Big 3 driver. Ethan Lane is going to be 10th, and still, he's on his own. Not a good night for Ethan Lane by any means, and this is what we often say about Ethan Lane. While he's been on such a torrid winning streak to end up as a regular season champion with back-to-back victories, now this is where things get problematic. Ethan Lane, he finds himself once again on what could be a top 10, yes, but not a substantial top 10, not a top 10 of substance, shall we say. The merit of getting a top 10 in a 17-car field is different from getting a top 10 in a, say, 25 or 30-car field, as we had to open up the season. And when your competitors are up ahead and they might even be able to lap you, that's when it becomes even worse. I mean, we just scrolled a few moments back beyond where Ethan Lane is, and now the lead pack, they are coming, and they might have a chance now to really make it a good fight with Lane. Even the coming laps is 84 laps in. We have 84 laps to go. Making it to the halfway point live on FTN, you're watching coverage of the Un-DEBATE-able OCTANE 200, and we hope you enjoyed what you've seen so far. FTN Broadcasting, we're going to be bringing to you action all throughout the rest of the week from Wednesday to Sunday, as a matter of fact. Friday night is unfortunately going to be excluded, but in its place, 2 Thursday broadcasts, and we're sure you'll have a lot of fun with the IORA Cup Series coming back and the Highline Racing League. Tomorrow night, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're bringing back HCBB Baseball and the IPU Series, which has been covered by Andrew Schulte from majority of the Yokohama Bay Stars campaign. The Bay Stars are going to be playing the Brooklyn Bears in what will be the first annual September 11th Memorial Game in HCBB competition. Stick around tomorrow night, approximately 8:30 Eastern. We'll bring you live coverage from that event in its first ever rendition. And we'll talk to you more about that, of course, in the coming laps. We've got a lot of time on the table here, but first, we'd like to get a word in from our friends, our partner in simulation racing, iRacing Motorsport Simulations. The world's leading online simulator for 16 years and counting, iRacing brings to you all the races you see on FTN Broadcasting's channel and has been the leading simulator for not only professional sim racers, but for real-world drivers to train and improve their racing skills in various disciplines. From historical action to contemporary racing, iRacing has you covered. Visit iRacing.com for 30% off all memberships of any length. We'll be right back after the word, our following message from our friends at iRacing.com.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
78 laps to go here in Atlanta. It's going to get a little bit hotter here as the temperatures continue to drop. Weather report now as it looks like track temperature going to be 84 Fahrenheit, a 1 degree drop from our start at 85. Air temperature down now to 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are going to be southeast bound at 5 miles an hour, and relative humidity is the only thing that's been on the up and up so far. And right now, RH is hitting a high of 61%. It is as humid as it gets in the late night circumstance here. These drivers are going to have to deal with humidity above all else. As we mentioned, getting slowly but surely into those cooler temperatures doesn't mean the tires are going to be doing any better. Matter of fact, tire performance is going to be more worrying as the race goes on, given now we're on again a longer green flag run. 27 laps in, 77 laps to go. Estimates are showing pit road will get busy again at about lap 120 if we are to stay green. It is most likely that drivers will resort to a split strategy to play it safe. That looks to be the best way to go about things for the time being. There's really little other reason to do anything different now unless, of course, we have ourselves an outlying yellow flag or something that shakes up the strategy in a radical way. Jacob Fife is going to be the next lapper caught up to. Jacob right now is going to be a total of 10 laps down. So admittedly, not doing the best of jobs, of course, but that's a result of the incident he was involved in. To say it's his fault, not necessarily. It was a multi-car incident, but in a way, Fife, not a great way to start a championship, of course. You don't want to end up on the wrong foot in this opening race. It's a momentum setter. We said it last night in Darlington. If you have a good run on this first race, it'll set you up very well for the conclusion of the first round. Jacob Fife does come in as a 5th seed tonight, and he will be able to beat the likes of which, including Nicholas Ward, Nick Tarbuck, and Bobby Ross, not to mention the absent Galen Gidman. So Fife might not be necessarily out of contention. In all honesty, he might be able to stay above the bubble based on the point structure, but at the same time, he is still just going to lose position, and it's going to be very tricky for him to work out of a hole, especially if he underperforms in our next race, which will be in Darlington, a 184-lap event from track too tough to tame. Then we have ourselves a 55-lap feature at the Charlotte Roval. This is when things get intense. The championship battle all comes down to this. These final races will be critical to how drivers perform all throughout the season. Well, It's gotten them here, but these races are going to be a little bit longer to finish off the campaign. Homestead is going to come in at about the exact same length as what you're seeing tonight, 250 miles to send off the Octane Series in 2024, and we're upping our race lengths by some 20%, giving these drivers that extra challenge. Mind you, very few series even give these drivers the amount of length you're seeing consistently in this series. I mean, if you look at the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, where former Integrity Racing League drivers such as a Matt Busa have graduated on and raced in, they don't have lengths as long as this. We go 200 plus most every single race, and the challenge comes in whether or not you can manage that consistently with a versatile style of racing. Intermediates, short tracks, longer circuits, those unique tracks with those different dimensions, different sizes, different characteristics, and all of the above. Right now, it looks like Tom Wetmore is going to find himself making it by Jacob Fife, and at long last, they've caught up to the 36. This will move Jacob back as he goes 11 laps down with 71 laps to go. Unfortunately, going to be one of those final nails in the coffins for a race of this proportion. 11 laps down, very hard to recover from this point onward. 36 of Jacob Fife deciding to stay up there, and it looks like he's not going to make it any easier for Tom Wetmore or the rest of the field. And mind you, drivers are allowed again to defend their position, but you remember what happened last time when the lead lappers and the lappers clashed? Well, ended up with our most recent caution. 70 laps remaining. Ethan Lane is going to pull down a pit road after a 33-lap stint, and it looks like it's going to be a significant undercut for the driver, the 54. Lane making it in with 70 laps to go, and based on him coming in so early, it looks like his estimate is that he can go some 70 laps without worry for the rest of this race. As Lane goes in, the field goes through, and Tom Wetmore still going to be led around by the 36 of Jacob Fife. Maybe this is different, and maybe this is actually a good thing for the field. If they want to make it to the end of this race and maybe hit better fuel numbers, they've got a driver they can work with here, and that's Jacob Fife. Why not let the lapper, whose fuel numbers don't necessarily matter, lead the field around? Of course, lead the field around. Take everyone, put them all together, put them in line, and not have to worry about going full throttle. I'm sure Wetmore right now doesn't like it. He's making efforts to drop down to the inside and move Fife out of the way, but it looks like he's letting Fife once again get the advantage coming through the corners, and now it looks like it's not going to be all about letting. It's going to be all about whether or not Jacob Fife can hang on there. A little bit of a bobble with Sam Nieto. Toe-to-toe once again. It looks like the 54 of Ethan Lane is going to be caught up to even quicker, and this is when it becomes tricky because Lane is, yes, one lap down. Now he could go 2 under, and looks like he's going to be in a bad position with nobody else to assist him. Lane and Wetmore are both lapped drivers. This is going to be bad news, of course, if these drivers hang on to one another. It means there's going to be a practical blockade on the entire field. Jacob Fife, Wetmore, and of course Ethan Lane now working with each other. Lane is going to find himself still out and ahead. Jacob Fife is a car length up on current leader Tom Wetmore. Then you got Michael Araya, Sam Nieto going at each other. 67 laps to go for all the drivers in the lead of the field. And then you have Don Stevenson, and coming with them going to be Nick Tarbuck down to the inside. Wetmore holds fort, and it looks like right now he's going to let those lappers do their thing at the head of the pack. Tom Wetmore right now going to be several car lengths away from both Jacob Fife and Ethan Lane. And it looks like rather than being aggressive about letting these lappers stay on their current lap, they're not going to get on the lead lap in any sense of the manner. However, it looks like it's a different approach. Instead of going after the lappers, it's going to be all about whether or not you can use these lead lap drivers to the lappers' advantage and vice versa. It's sort of a double cross here. Maybe not even a double cross, but an exchange where both drivers are in the right position at the right time. Leaders don't have to worry as much about fuel, and now the lap drivers won't have to worry about being put one further under, and instead they'll be able to hang tough with very little resistance up on top of the board. Even still, Michael Araya is going to be in second. Brad Patton is third. Let's talk about the heart of the pack right now, as it's going to be Don Stevenson nearly rubbing up to the top side with Sam Nieto. Nieto in the number 2. Miller Lite Machine is still yet to find victory lane. Tonight, it looks like every driver who has not, of course, found victory lane, they're primed to have a chance tonight. Ethan Lane, of course, now going to be out of contention. It looks like Nick Tarbuck, more or less out of contention as well. And that only leads us now with one of the big 3 drivers in the mix, Michael Araya. And while it's very likely, yes, that he still has a chance to go out there and win, he's done it many a time before. He's now, of course, looking for his 8th victory, one of which of course would be crucial and perhaps the most important of any drivers this season. To win for the very first time in the playoffs, of course, the rookie Michael Araya. Let's not forget, he is a rookie in this series. He came in with no history. No victories, no top 5s, no top 10s, anything of that sort. Instead, he came in with a clean slate. 106 laps into this race, and well, as he's been all season long, he is a podium sitter yet again. And inside the top 3, it's going to be Michael Araya in second. Michael won here in Atlanta to kick off the campaign in our series' second race. Ethan Lane might have been able to get the job done, or Nick Tarbuck alike, but Michael Araya has found intermediate success ever since. Now the question becomes whether or not Michael Araya can, of course, capitalize on what he's done tonight and bring himself up to a race victory. His competitors, his most important competitors anyway, don't find themselves anywhere near him. The big 3 has been whittled down to 1, and now looks like that 1 is trying to find the race lead. Here comes Michael Araya up onto the top side. No help yet. It's going to be now Tom Wetmore riding lonely on the bottom of the circuit. Brad Patton decides to go down again, but looks like dropping back and forth really is not going to make much an impact for these drivers. With 60 laps to go, odds are now these are very casual moves, not made with the intent to sway the race lead any direction, either back or forth. The most important thing that will come of it, of course, is going to be the driver, the number 51, Tom Wetmore, trying to find a way to continue adapting as more drivers continue to maybe make their way up. Now Michael Araya going to pass the torch, and it's going to be Brad Patton's chance to get up to second. What can he do now for the race lead? 59 laps remaining. Brad Patton finds himself runner-up now, and it looks like the gap between he and race leader is 17/100ths of a second. Look back and you'll see Don Stevenson, of course, there in 4th. He got by Sam Nieto. These two were side by side for give or take 5 to 10 laps. And then you got Ross Cato, of course. He's there in 6th, and he's got the lapper of Nick Tarbuck. Tarbuck going to be serving as a little bit of a buffer here as another driver heads down a pit road. That will be Alan Rawell, and lap 110. We were estimating 115, 120 going to be a sweet spot for many drivers. 46 laps in, Alan Rawell a little bit early, and yet he'll decide to go down and in, and he makes it through earliest of all. Tom Wetmore going to find himself now maybe seeing down low at some of our lead lappers, although Allen is not necessarily with the pack. That's a signal. Very, very soon, we're going to have ourselves a perfect chance to see green flag pit stops, and looks like at this point we have very little interruption remaining. $51 of Wetmore going to be leading. Brad Patton going to be second. Michael Araya is in third. 1, 2, 3. That's the way they roll. And 111 laps in, I think one of these drivers has to make a wish. Maybe it'll be Tom Wetmore, because he's leading at this rate. He's done so for the past 25 plus. As it stands, it's going to be Wetmore, Patton, Araya, the 1, 2, 3 combination. Single file they roll, and Don Stevenson is going to be in 4th. Then you got Sam Nieto 5th, Ross Cato's in 6th, Randy Fiash is in 7th, and Kyle Cooper position number 8. 9th place is going to be Eli Cars, and Alan Rawell, 1 lap down, rounds out the top 10 with 56 laps to go. We are still counting down as we speak. Of course, the laps are continuing to wind down, and unfortunately for Cody Smith, hasn't gone in his favor so far today. But the Next Level Racing number 18 is in 12th, and well, still inside the top dozen, and maybe a chance to keep on gaining through attrition. We'd like to thank once again Next Level Racing for their continued support in bringing the Next Level Race to the Championship to you live on FTN. If you've enjoyed the coverage we brought to you so far, visit nextlevelracing.com and use promo code INTEGRITY for 10% off checkout for all Next Level Racing purchases. Leading hardware in sim racing since 2009, made for dedicated sim racers who deserve nothing but the best. Next Level Racing has you covered, and as a sim racer, they're the best place to go for all hardware equipment. Visit nextlevelracing.com after tonight's broadcast, and we will return after a following messages from our friends at Next Level Racing. "52 laps remaining, pit road is inevitable, and now the leaders are coming up on the crossroads. We've gone now 53 laps on this stint. Green flag pit stops are due to come very, very soon." Welcome back live on FTN to the Un-DEBATE-able OCTANE 200, and right now, things are getting more heated than they've been all night long. You'll see while it's a very small pack, the distances are minimal, and it looks like the margins are becoming thinner and thinner as the laps wind down. Sam Nieto going to be in fourth, Brad Patton in third, Michael Araya P2, but Tom Wetmore's Tube Tech Chevrolet has reigned supreme all throughout this stint. He's let Jacob Fife do a lot of the heavy lifting so far. It looks like Fife has been quite the asset to these drivers, and Ethan Lane, well, admittedly, he's gotten himself out of the worry of being put one down. That time by, Ethan Lane ran a 31.771. The pack behind him ran a 31.8. Oh, that's very risky with Jacob Fife and Michael Araya. That could have been 3-wide contact, and that could have been decimation. Luckily, everyone going to lie back and let it slide. So we'll keep on going here, and it looks like Jacob Fife going to hang tough where he's at. There's, of course, the Tom Wetmore 51 crew who have kept themselves so consistent throughout this run, and at long last, he's going to make it right by the 36. And Jacob Fife, he's done a good job himself, of course, of keeping up as the effective pace driver for this field. Not like a pace car going at 80 miles an hour or so, but instead playing the role of being the driver that brings the field through at a solid pace of some 175 miles an hour. Not going to be full on under his leadership, but just enough to bring them beyond the threshold of making it to the end. And now that's not a worry in the slightest, and it might be all about going long to finish the job. Checkered flag now. It's going to be Tom Wetmore, of course, looking at it 48 laps ahead. That's all it takes here for Wetmore to find his first race victory. Whether or not, of course, he's going to be able to get there, that remains to be seen. Jacob Fife right now going to be going down low. Michael Araya right up top. It's the battle between a driver's first victory and Michael Araya's 8th. 8 victories if Michael Araya wins here in Atlanta. Whether or not he can get there, that remains to be seen as well. Everything right now, it's all perspective. The future, this championship relies on a race like this. Atlanta's victory is perhaps the most important of the season, short of getting it done in Homestead. And now drivers are coming into pit road for the final time. First of which, Kyle Cooper. He'll go 1 lap down as a result. 56-lap stint for the driver, the number 73. Cooper drops in, and Tom Wetmore right now going to find himself looking at what is only a 7-car pack. Randy Fiash has also left it as he's now off the lead draft. It's going to be 6 drivers on the lead lap. They're close to Tom Wetmore, separated by give or take 2 seconds at the very most. Tom Wetmore now going to keep himself low and focus mostly on lapper Jacob Fife. Michael Araya goes up top, and strength in numbers not going to be found on either the inside or outside grooves. Although, when it comes to the straight numbers, it looks like the number 44 machine of Michael Araya, keeping himself up high, has a little bit more support, and that's going to come from the likes of Don Stevenson and Sam Nieto, all of which lappers. Right now, you'll see Sam Nieto drop down to the bottom again. Nick Tarbuck is going to be 11 laps down and coming up on Jacob Fife, which would be a battle for position. Both drivers are going to be going at it for 13th place. 13th right now in Fife. Let's see whether or not, of course, he can get there. Looks like, for now, Jacob Fife keeping himself marginally ahead of Nick Tarbuck, 0.4 of a second with 44 laps to go. As it stands, it looks like Tarbuck is doing a pretty good job, of course, of staying with Stevenson and company, and he's not decided to break out and be as aggressive as Jacob Fife, and we'll see what strategy works out the best, of course. For Fife and Tarbuck alike, they would need multiple cautions, a double-digit amount to even get back on the lead lap. So for them, the races are not necessarily about going for the win, but instead going against each other and maybe just trying to keep with good relationships up at the head of the pack. Another driver that heads down to pit road, Ross Cato, he will go in with Cody Smith and Randy Fiash after a 61 lap stint at the head of the field. Cato is going to be the first of the big drivers in that main pack to go into pit road. Quick move there for the number 12 machine of Ross Cato, which leaves us now at 5 lappers going at it up in front. Tom Wetmore still the leader of which, and you got Michael Araya runner-up, Sam Nieto third, Brad Patton fourth, and Don Stevenson in fifth. They're the final 5 now. We're waiting to see head down at pit road. The rest of the pack has come in, and it looks like 50 plus. These drivers have decided to stretch it beyond that range, and now have even gone 60 plus laps. Maybe going to be 65 and beyond, of course, if these drivers can make their way through, and that's not going to be happening tonight. 62 will be the limit. Tom Wetmore brings the pack down and in out of turn 4. Laraya right there with, as is Sam Nieto and Don Stevenson alike. Lastly, you'll see Nicholas Ward, the lapper, making it in, and as such, it's going to be pit road occupied now by your race leaders. Just like that, the 51 Tube Tech Chevrolet occupying his, of course, pole position stall or outside pole stall. Still the most important of all those who have that opportunity. Getting in first, getting in last. We'll see what's the biggest advantage here. Wetmore has a chance to get off ahead of the number 2 of Nieto, and that he will. Wetmore comes out ahead. Then you have Michael Araya at the line, just barely beat by Nieto. Sam's going to make it through. He'll be next second as we wait now on one final driver who just went in. That is Brad Patton. Patton just decided to make it through from the race lead, and he goes after 64 laps. The only driver to stretch it that far after, of course, our longest stint of the day. Now it's going to be 40 laps remaining for Brad Patton and company as he's going to come down and in and let the leaders get back into order. It will be Ross Cato, your overall race leader after this pit cycle with a 3-lap older stint and tires not mattering as much. Ross Cato with a gamble of the race so far, albeit it looks like a safe bet, and it's just enough to get him up advantageous over all other drivers. It will be now Ross Cato leading, then Tom Wetmore in second, and Sam Nieto P3 with Michael Araya fourth and Brad Patton fifth, although now you'll see it's no longer much a pack, and instead it's a multitude of drivers all spread out. Take a ride on board right now with the number 2 of Sam Nieto as he gets up to the battle for the race lead. Now the leading line beginning to string together all over again. Ross Cato is up high. It's going to be Tom Wetmore still on the bottom, and feeding that bottom side comes with them Sam Nieto and Michael Araya. Here comes up top the number 12 machine of Ross Cato. Whether or not he's coming or going, though, that'll be dictated by the drivers around him. And it looks like he's falling back just a little bit further as we come up now on the lapper of Kyle Cooper. Kyle going 1 lap down on this cycle, and it looks like Not much more. Coming out of that 73 team tonight, Cooper involved in some very early issues, but ever since then he's run a solid night and finds himself now in the 10th position as it stands. Randy Fiash additionally going to race against Alan Rawell. That is the battle for 8th, but for now, nowhere near the race leaders, and Eli Carr's finding himself as the one and only lapper interfering with this pack. No signs yet of Ethan Lane, as he looks like he's now with the group, including Fiash and Alan Rawell, and no sign of Jacob Fife, who is 9 laps down as it stands. And with Nick Tarbuck yet again, these two drivers you're looking at are battling for position, mind you. 13th place is what's on the agenda for both Tarbuck and Jacob Fife. Their goal, taking that spot. Now it's going to be 2x2 yet again at the front of the pack. Tom Wetmore on the bottom, Sam Nieto up top. Strategy has effectively come to a close. Now that we've gone down to pit road for that final time, it becomes a little bit trickier. There is still strategy involved, and it's more so strategy of communication. We've mentioned that Atlanta is a drafting track, but maybe you haven't seen drivers treat it like that, given how we've raced for the first 100 plus laps. So far, though, I think things are a little bit less indicative of how the race will end, and more so how the race has been. You're going to see drivers now acting as if it's Daytona or Talladega, taking them, going back and forth, pushing and shoving. It's going to be all about whether or not you can negotiate well, rather than if you have the pace or if you have the tire, if you have the fuel. That was all very important to kick off the race. That was very important until lap 120 some. We're not at lap 120. We're not at 125. We're getting closer and closer to lap 140 here. And that means that everything that's been really important to get to this point is gone. We've gotten past it. Now, the important thing is getting to the end, collecting the checkered flag, and winning here from Atlanta to open up the campaign as a playoff winner. Playoff victory, the most important perhaps of the season, and it looks like right now Tom Wetmore poised for it, but he's going to have that feisty Michael Araya, the 44, right behind him yet again. Catching up the lappers once more is going to be all about what these last few laps are about when it comes to lap traffic. Let's see who's on the agenda. Nicholas Ward's going to be down the back straightaway with Cody Smith. Bobby Ross right now going to be down the back on his own. Cody Smith, of course, right there. And there's Eli Cards with Kyle Cooper. Still going to be with the leaders here. So Michael Orion Company might not come up to anyone for the next 10 to 15 plus laps. They might have a lot of time until they get to someone like Bobby Ross. But when they do get there, that could be the final major shuffle up before the last 3, 2, 1 period of this race, where it almost becomes like a green-white checkered in motion. 32 laps to go. We still have not quite gotten there yet, but we're inching slowly but surely toward the point where these laps are going to come through and they're going to be fluid. And that last lap, the white flag flies and everyone knows this is it. Pit road completely emptied now. It looks like every driver who's still with us, of course, are going to continue racing. Brian McFerrin, the one and only disconnection and retirement on the day. Right now, it's the number 44 Michael Araya holding forth over the rest of the pack. 17 drivers who registered, 16 still going across 25 laps. From Bobby Ross on back. Now you'll have Sam Nieto going toe-to-toe with the number 2, of course, up high. He'll get a few moments up in the wall. Sparks will fly, but Nieto looks to be unscathed. He'll stay right there with a Tube Tech Chevrolet, and hanging side by side, 31 laps remaining, Tom Wetmore. He's right there, as is Don Stevenson on Eli Cars, but Eli, again, is a lapper, no longer finding himself in winning contention, and instead, he'll just be up top, filling that space and keeping the high side busy. Looks like now the low groove again is where the strength is, not only in numbers, but in race pace. 30 laps remaining. Take a look at your overall top 10. Michael Araya leading, Sam Nieto second, Tom Wetmore P3, and Don Stevenson then and there in fourth. There'll be Ross Cato in the 5th position and Brad Patton then in 6th, with Randy Fiash 7th and Ethan Lane holding his own in 8th. Final drivers on the lead lap, Alan Rawell 9th and Kyle Cooper in 10th, as Cody Smith even still runs in the 12th position. We'd like to thank Next Level Racing once again for providing their support to the Integrity Racing League. Visit nextlevelracing.com for additional information and use promo code INTEGRITY for 10% off all checkout. Any order on their website. We'll be right back after the final messages of the day from our friends at nextlevelracing.com, and we'll return with the home stretch from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. "25 laps to go. Bobby Ross going to move down to the inside, letting these leaders go right by, and it's still Tom Wetmore in command of what's left of the field here in Atlanta. 143 laps in out of 167. You're watching the Un-DEBATE-able Octane 200. The last moments of this event will come down to, of course, who's the best at a mini super speedway? It's a challenge which, of course, comes infrequently. It's a question rarely answered. And now for the drivers, it's what's presented right ahead of them. You cannot escape what's left of this race, especially now for a driver like Tom Wetmore, who has been leading for so long. This first win, he is the closest he's been all year to finding victory lane. He's a 5-time winner in this series, and he is a top 5 winningest driver of all time in this league based on those numbers. Whether or not, of course, he can defend that tonight still remains up in the air, but he would tie Seth Noel on the victory list and find himself 3rd all-time if, of course, he comes through and gets himself another checkered flag. Right now, he and Nick Tarbuck are tied on the all-time win list. They are tied in the 4th position, both of which have 5 wins. Nick Tarbuck getting 1 last season and getting himself 4 during this campaign. Tom Wetmore's 5 come from last year's efforts. Now, looking to etch 1 in before the playoffs get serious. 23 laps to go this time by. Well, as always, with 22 laps to go, we're going to get loud with iRacing's best cameras. Visit trackcams22.com if you're an up-and-coming broadcaster, a veteran in your field, or someone trying out iRacing's amazing replay system for the first time. The best broadcasters, they choose the best cameras. And so, trackcams22.com is the way to go. Visit trackcams22.com for additional information, as we're going to get loud and crank it up now with 22 laps to go here in Atlanta. 16 laps remaining in Atlanta, and our final visit here, well, it ends in, of course, night skies. For the first time here in iRacing, the Atlanta Motor Speedway is brought to life beyond the sunset, and with an opportunity now to bring this brand new super speedway configuration in the night sky, well, iRacing has jumped in full on, and now we're seeing a day-to-night race. Climate has made a little bit of difference. The tires, maybe not all too much. They've all had a very good control tonight, with the exception of 2 yellow flags intermittently in the opening sector. Ever since that point, we have been smooth sailing to come to the end of this race. And so far, Tom Wetmore has been sailing the smoothest of all. But that doesn't mean he's poised to win. Although, of course, you might think he's got himself a locked-up opportunity. That's all he's got, the opportunity to do so, the opportunity to win. It's not necessarily locked up for any driver here in the picture. For all we know, all the drivers, all 5 of which who are inside this leading battle, all of them could wreck. And for that, it would be Randy Fiash and Ethan Lane who would come to victory lane. Maybe it would be Randy Fiash. You really never know. Last time we were in Atlanta on FTN, the entire pack short of 1 driver wrecked. It was a 4-wide maneuver on the final lap, and only 1 driver escaped ahead of the field. Now, that's not to say 4-wide could even happen here. We don't have a lot of room to go 4-wide and multiple rows deep anyway. It just comes down to whether or not these drivers decide to risk it all, or will these drivers take a good points day. I don't know if Michael Araya really cares all too much about the big 3 numbers-wise, but I'm sure he'll have his 8th win, and maybe tonight he's got a chance to bring it. And what's the final really random circuit where anyone could win, quote unquote. Although all the drivers here have at least 1 victory in their career. Sam Nieto, 4 of which in his career. Tom Wetmore, 5. Ross Cato, 1. Don Stevenson, 1 as well. And Michael Araya, who's got himself 7 in total. So it's not like this is a group that does not have the accolades to prove it. As a matter of fact, it's one of the most successful groups in this league's history. If you bundle a random batch of drivers, you'll be lucky to get the drivers you have here and now, but most of which have not been able to find the checkered flag this season. And that is the unfortunate part, at least for them anyhow. Now tonight, they're hungrier than ever, and they know what's on the line. This is what it's all about, playoff racing in the last moments of a race, the opening race as a matter of fact. And a win here would set you free into the round of 10. Let's talk about that schedule a little bit. It's not going to be as chaotic as the Integrity Ignite Series if you're watching along with both, but there's certainly a lot of room for chaotic circuits. Darlington is a track too tough to tame. Simply put, some drivers love it, some drivers hate it. That's as simple as it comes. It'll be one of the very first we hit. It'll be next week. Then we have the Charlotte Roval, the track where Don Stevenson got his 1 and only 55 laps there. It's going to be another exciting one, and our final race of September. Then we have Auto Club for 100 laps, 200 miles. We went there in the Ignite Series. We've been there before in the Octane Series. It'll be a late season edition. And then Martinsville, where it was Ross Cato who got his first career victory. And then we'll move on to Phoenix Motor Speedway for a 156 lap race, which was our championship event last year. Then we've got the 30th and final race, which is the Homestead Miami Speedway. And mind you, we open up our final bracket tonight at our last mini super speedway events. As such, we got another sort of playoff to worry about where even non-playoff drivers are involved. However, right now all the top seeds are working their way through very well with 9 laps to go. We have approached the single digits here in Atlanta, and it looks clear that Sam Nieto getting a little bit more momentum on the high side, maybe something that he can put to run with. The number 51 of Tom Wetmore right there with. 8 laps to go when we come across the stripe. We're at the point now where a yellow flag would greatly alter the state of this race. Of course, not only the amount of time we'd have left under green, but where we stay under green. Laps could be extended. We could go to a green-white checkered finish, and I'm sure drivers would not love to see that happen given how long they worked together. Whether or not it was by choice anyway, to get to this point. We've been under green for some 100 laps now, and to have it end off in a very short stint, I'm sure would be satisfying, maybe, if anything. Although I don't think the drivers have much of preference so long as they have a chance to win here. The leaders have done a fantastic job staying clean as they're coming up on the lapper of Alan Rowell. And Rowell, well, he left himself in the dust here, Ethan Lane getting away, and as such, Rowell's going to... And And the number 69 going to get out of the way of the field here. Eli Carr is going to get through as well. He has 2 laps down in the 11th. And it looks like Kyle Cooper coming up on Brad Patton. This is a battle for position. And while the battle for position further on back is enticing, the battle for lead continues to be that much more. Don Stevenson up on the high side with help now from Sam Nieto. The number 47's got to move Jamaica, and he's going to try to rip the top to do so. It'll be now Don Stevenson working his way up on the high side with still Tom Wetmore working below. The inside groove has been so successful at defending, but it looks like now it's going to be Don Stevenson trying to give Wetmore a run for his money with the final 5 laps left on the table. Nothing much can come of it, and Stevenson's going to fall back yet again. Ross Cato's going to stay behind, and if you look on board with him, well, he's going to stay with Don Stevenson regardless. You can't really push or shove with the back bumpers on these Gen 4 stock cars. Instead, you got to wait your turn. Send them through the corner, give them a nice aerodynamic push, and that's all you can do. Hope the air brings your best friends on the track up the right direction. 4 laps remaining. That's what's left here in Atlanta. Only 6 miles to really determine who's got what it takes. So far, Ross Cato staying just behind Don Stevenson. Not gonna, of course, show any allegiance to any driver, but right now he looks to be content on that outside groove, whereas Tom Wetmore remains very satisfied with how he's done on the inside. That number 51 doing an amazing job at that, and here comes Sam Nieto going high. That'll leave Michael Araya with a perfect opportunity to swoop up on the inside, and Don Stevenson now nearly fully clear on the number 51. Doesn't quite come of it though, and now the 47 machinist Stevenson, while still a car length ahead, is going to see Michael Araya now pushing and shoving with Tom Wetmore. Take a look at the distance. It is minimal on the inside groove. Try to get a chance to work there with Don Stevenson, and Tom is side by side. It'll be 2 laps to go. Popsicle sticks this time around, and the checkered flag is that much closer to open up the next level race to the cup. 2 laps remaining. Toe-to-toe now. Tom Wetmore is going to stay with Don Stevenson. Michael Araya hangs just behind, and it looks like Sam Nieto is going to lay off as well. Of all the drivers inside the top 5, 4 of which have not won this season, the only one that has, he holds 7 victories. And he's running in second right now. If he can only get by that pink and black number 47. And now if we come to the white flag with no trouble, which we will, this race is official. White flag is out here from Atlanta. It's going to be now all about Michael Araya and Tom Wetmore down low. Up top still remains Sam Nieto and Don Stevenson alike. This is what victories are made of. Getting to this point, going the distance of nearly 250 full miles. Someone's got to give. We'll find out who. Don Stevenson remains up on the high side, and Tom Wetmore holds it down low. No incident to this point. The 47 side by side with Tom Wetmore again. Up the track. Wetmore cannot get to the line in time. Don Stevenson wins in Atlanta. Second career victory for the number 47, and perfectly sent through the final corner. Stevenson with his first victory of the year in the most unexpected of ways collects the checkered flag from the mini super speedway. Unbelievable finish for the 47. Wetmore trying to pick himself up after the final 500 feet. And it was just not enough. A magic exit off of turn 4 for Don Stevenson. Victory lane is his once again. Coming toward the start-finish line, that's Don Stevenson parking it, only to roll once again. It looks like it'll be a slow final lap around track. Maybe a little bit more than that for Don Stevenson, who's waited nearly a full year to get back to victory lane, and it looks like he's going to get this one out of the way rather quickly. Only the second non-Big Three winner to collect the checkered flag all year long, and the perfect time to do it. Don Stevenson will win over Sam Nieto and perhaps the race favorite in Tom Wetmore, who finished in third. Michael Araya P4 and Ross Cato in fifth. Randy Fiash going to be P6 and Ethan Lane, the final driver on the lead lap, then in seventh. It'll be Alan Rawell eighth and Brad Patton in ninth. Kyle Cooper then in 10th and 11th place on the order. Then and there going to be Eli Cars. Cody Smith is 12th. Jacob Fife 13th. Nick Tarbuck 14th place. Nicholas Ward in 15th. 16th will be Bobby Ross, and 17th and last of all those on the track tonight, Brian McFerrin, the first retiree. Looks like Don Stevenson going to be making it back to the start and finish line, and this time perhaps for good, parking it on the start finish. Quick celebration and a burnout at that for the number 47 of Don Stevenson. Let's get a word from your race winner who gets the job done. He might have only led one lap today, but it was the most important of which, and so the 47 is back in victory lane, waiting to fill that one win a year quota. It almost appears Don Stevenson comes right on time when comparing it to last season. In 2023, he had to wait till the Charlotte Roval. 2 weeks before the Roval this season, Stevenson at long last finds victory lane for the second win in his Octane Series career. Victory from Atlanta, you led the most important lap, and that set you free. Don, how do you feel to open up the playoffs as a race winner?
Oh, really great, actually. I mean, I really wasn't expecting to, really even challenge for the win or anything, because this super speedway racing has never really been my cup of tea or anything, but found myself there in the final group there, the top five there, and tried to save tires there at the beginning of that run a little bit, and then just use them all up, the last 10, 15 laps, and was able to position ourselves pretty good, and then in a decent spot, and got to the outside of Tom there, and got a great push by Sam there to, to stay even and ultimately get ahead of them there at the line. So it was a fun finish.
And a fantastic finish for you there, and it looks like a very small pack to finish it off. Super Speedway Racing, it brings challenge to most everyone. It looks like tonight you were able to get away from the attrition. 2 cautions, so it came down to a lot of that natural strategy, and not a lot of drivers there at the end, as we mentioned. Were you comfortable with the position you had throughout that long run?
Yeah, well, honestly, I would have been perfectly satisfied with even if I finished 5th in that row, because that would have been a good solid points day. And like I said, quite a few of the guys had some trouble there. I mean, we only had 2 cautions, but they were 2 pretty big cautions. That, like, it was a relatively small field to begin with tonight, and those 2 cautions really thinned out the field. And then, the one cool thing about tonight was, like, the tire wear was really a thing, and you really had to try to protect that right front. So that part of the racing was really nice and everything. It was just these cars were going so slow. We were only going like 175, 180, and it was like, felt like you could almost take a nap on the straightaways at times. But I mean, it was overall, no, it was pretty fun tonight.
It looks like a fun way to kick things off here. Now, tires, fuel, we did see it was a Daytona Night Racing at Atlanta. It looks like with the way everyone was saving, maybe the tires weren't worn out all too bad. You think there was any difference over the stints?
Oh, I mean, mine, like, I saved at the beginning of that run for about 15, 20 laps. And, like, I had gotten a tire warning with about 1 or 2 laps to go when I basically told the spotter, I was like, yep, all right, thank you. Well aware. Thanks. I mean, but if you didn't protect that right front and save that right front, you would lose the draft pretty easily after about gosh, I mean, probably about 50 laps or so, because you could go almost 80 laps on fuel, which was crazy in itself. But I mean, it was a challenge playing that balance of, trying to have track position but also save tires, and but we survived the two big wrecks and put ourselves in a spot where maybe we could get lucky, and we able to take advantage, like I said, of a great push there by Sam, and made a good move there, and was able to get the victory here tonight and lock ourselves into the next round, which is nice.
And all things considered, it's a fast pass to the round of 10 here now. Some tracks you're familiar with: Darlington, the Charlington Roval up next for this round. How are you going to spend the next 2 weeks, of course, preparing perhaps for what's next?
Well, I think I'm going to try to convince Jacob to move the Roval into the round of 10 instead of in this round, because that's one of my better tracks, and I'd much rather have that in a round where I'm not already locked in. But all kidding aside there, but looking forward to racing at Darlington. Darlington to me is the most fun track in iRacing. I mean, just slipping and sliding, and especially in this car. I can't wait for the challenge that's going to be. And so the Roval, that's going to be a challenge in this car as well. I mean, it's going to be tough, but we'll go at it like we always do. Maybe we'll try to get some playoff points to help us in the next round, maybe. But all in all, it ain't going to be too much different than what we normally do.
Just like that, Don Stevenson collecting the checkered flag, the first of the 2024 playoffs, winning in Atlanta. Any final comments or shout-outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, thank the admins here, Jacob, Cody, Chris, Tom, Jay, all the guys that do a great job, running this series and everything, all the drivers that, showed up. I know, again, it was a little bit of a light field tonight, but as we wind down towards the end of the season, it's kind of a consistent theme. It's happening across the board in all the leagues, you know, across iRacing. At the end of the year, numbers start to dwindle and everything. But appreciate all the members that keep sticking it out and everything. Thank my wonderful wife that allows me to race every week. It's especially this time of the year, it's tougher for me with all the stuff I got going on, and she still puts up with me and everything. So, she deserves a lot of the credit as well and everything. And thank you thank you, David, up in the booth. You've done a terrific job this year, and and last year and as well. And we're just happy to have you on board and everything. And thank Next Level Racing, for some, for the sponsorship the last couple of years. It's been awesome seeing the prizes we've been able to give away, and looking forward to hopefully continued partnership with that going forward.
And just like that, Don Stevenson finding back to victory lane in the playoffs as it was last year. This time, though, victory in the Mini Super Speedway. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Now, with Stevenson on the move next to Sam Nieto, who was oh so close to victory lane tonight. Another strong finish for the number 2 team, a necessary one at that, to open up with a good points day for the 2 crew. Sam, second place here from Atlanta. How do you feel?
I'm wore out, sweaty.
We'll tell you this much: 250 miles we had on the table. One of our longest races, and here at Atlanta, it's a lot of twists and turns, given how short this circuit is. It's our first mini super speedway race with these Gen 4s. It's a completely different style of sort of super speedway racing. We saw it all throughout with strategy. When it comes to suiting your racing style at super speedways to this track, first off, what did it take to sort of adapt?
That's a good question. I'm not sure that I've adapted yet. I felt like saving tires really didn't. The whole first half of the race, I was saving tires, and then at the end of the race, it didn't really feel like saving tires meant anything. But it also could have been the temperature dropping, and just the track adding more grip. So I don't know. I just ran hard the last run, and the tires lasted long enough.
And it looks like tires able to last a long distances. 100 laps of green flags end the race, and the field got wheeled down substantially. Draft was important, but it looked like very few drivers had what it takes to stick together until the very end of it. So when it comes to communicating with drivers today, we see the draft being an important factor. You think it just came about of who you were around, or did you have anyone specific in mind?
Yeah, it was just who you were around. I tried to run the top there, and I kind of gave up on it. I wanted to duck in line and cool my stuff off for a little bit, and Don got up there, and then that was the only place for me to go. So it wasn't that I was, wanting to push Don to a win, but he just happened to be the guy that was there.
Well, it looks like you just found yourself in that circumstance. Either way, second place finish and a good points day to open up the playoffs here. Up next on the schedule, we're going to go to Darlington for more than 180 laps on the docket. Going to be some longer races to finish off this season, and going to give way to perhaps some more green flag strategy. How do you feel about heading back to the Lady in Black?
I love Darlington, one of my favorite tracks, but probably not in this car. Still haven't figured out how to drive this car very well, so we'll see if I can do anything in Darlington.
Well, regardless of that, great points day to give you somewhat of a buffer before we get on to that round of 10. Sam, second place from Atlanta. If you have any final shout-outs you'd like to give, the floor is yours.
I think the league, Jacob putting on IRL, good league. Thank you for putting on the broadcast. It's fun to go back and watch them the next day or whenever, just relive all the glory. So, yeah, we appreciate what you do here.
Just like that. Sam Nieto, position number 2 here from Atlanta. Great way to kick off this opening round. Thank you again for your time.
All right, thank you.
Sam on the move. Last driver today, Tom Wetmore, led the most laps and was oh so close. This is going to be an interesting one to hear. Let's figure out what's going on with the 51 camp for Roadhouse Racing, coming back and almost finding victory for what would be the 6th time in his career, but oh so close. Third place, Tom Wetmore here from Atlanta. You found yourself perhaps as the dominant car through that long green flag stint, and nevertheless came out of it with a top 3. What was it like out there?
It was really boring, actually. It was the cars here are a little bit underpowered, so only doing about 160, 175 mile an hour into turn 1's a little bit slower than what some of us are used to in some of the other cars, but they were slow because they had no grip. So if you didn't manage your right front tire, you were going to find yourself struggling on some of those long green flag runs, and created some good ebb and flow for some of the drivers there in the top 10. We saw some guys fade out, some guys move up, and unfortunately some guys get crashed and potentially hurt their playoff chances tonight. So it's quite the race.
Well, it looks like this race nevertheless went to a very small group of drivers, and you found yourself as leader for many of the laps in between our final yellow flag and our one and only checkered flag. One thing that we did notice, fuel did maybe come a little bit into the equation. Tires seemed to be something very manageable today. Stints long when we had the green flag run anyway. 40 to end it, 60 plus before we got to that point. Was there any particular strategy used to approach those longer runs before we got down to that final stint?
Yeah, well, we knew that the tires probably wouldn't last a full fuel stint, which is a lot of what the fans ask for in modern NASCAR racing these days. So we certainly had what fans would ask for. But when we were pitting, we were getting tire warnings, and the tires were chunking out from underneath us. So we were running the tires to the ragged edge and then pitting. Fortunately, we never had to push one to the edge of the fuel window, or I think we might have seen a blowout. Somebody pound the fence tonight. But it was a lot about managing the tires just as much as managing some of the fuel as we came down there at the end.
And a little bit of fuel management, perhaps, in what was not necessarily our most aggressive approach to mini superspeedway racing. We've seen Atlanta a few times. We've seen plate racing in the Octane Series before. Everything went down in what was mostly an orderly fashion to finish off that race. As the finish came down to maybe the final few hundred feet. You think there's anything you could have done to perhaps get a better run out of 4?
Oh yeah, we'll definitely think about this one tonight, but got to thank the Tube Tech boys. In this playoff system, every position is 1 point. Every position at the stage is 1 point. So it's a battle of 1 point at a time. So winning the stage got us 10 points there. Leading a lap got us a point there. Leading the most laps got us another point. And then a third place finish. I think we're going to come out of here with the largest point total, although we would have liked to beat Don there and be locked into the next round in case we get a DNF or something. But we got the protection of the boys at Robert Steele Attorneys at Law to protect us through this next round. And as long as the boys at Tube Tech keep fabricating us a hell of a car and keeping us safe, should hopefully be all right moving into the second round. Just got to be careful, avoid mistakes, avoid some of the calamity like you saw early tonight, and we should be able to advance. Hopefully, win ourselves some prizes from the boys over at Next Level Racing, who put together a heck of a package for us in the Integrity Racing League this year.
Well, nevertheless, Tom Wetmore, big points haul out of this one in Atlanta, and now the round of 10 is just 2 weeks away. 2 races left to move on to that second group, and a big buffer to bring you there. Any final shout-outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, like I said, got to thank the partners on board this car. I mentioned TubeTech and the Robin Steele attorneys at law, but Vex Vision certainly makes this bright silver number 51 look damn good underneath the lights here in Atlanta. So really awesome to get to run this scheme under the lights. I know it shines bright with that day glow orange and that bright silver. So those boys, and then Nomon putting the power underneath the hood here. We got a good group of partners on board, and it's nice to be able to put this thing at least on the podium for them. We just got to 2 steps higher next week.
2 steps higher, that's the goal. Tom Wetmore and the 51 team finished this one off after 250 miles, third. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks, David.
And what a way to open up our championship battle. 3 drivers as formidable as they come who have broken through on the big 3. Michael Araya finished 4th tonight and could not go out there for his 8th win. It'll be Tom Wetmore 3rd and Sam Nieto runner-up. Don Stevenson, 64 1,000ths at the line as you see it here. He'll win from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. It is Stevenson's first of 2024 and his second of his career, and the most important win so far of our 24 races in this season. Up next, we'll go to a track we went to in the Ignite Series, and we'll move back to the Lady in Black. It's time for the Darlington Raceway in a week. Same time, same place, 9 p.m. Eastern, live on FTN. Darlington Raceway will be your 25th race, and the second of which in the round of 15, the opening round to the Integrity OCTANE Series playoffs. The Octane Series will keep on going to the end of 2024 here with its second season in competition, and if you enjoy, make sure to leave a like and stream and subscribe to the channel. I've been David Kreutz, commentating and producing all up tonight's action from the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway, and if you'd like to join us on track as well, you can scan the QR code on your screen, and you can join the official FTN Broadcasting Discord server to get up to date with all FTN series from Monday to Sunday and every day in between. Thank you again for tuning in live on FTN. You've been watching the Un-DEBATE-able OCTANE 250 from the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. We hope you have a fantastic night.